We're going to talk about navigating the stress of goal setting. That's a good topic because I think we're always told to set goals, but how much stress do you feel when you have to set those goals? So, we're going to be talking about that today. But for now, let's introduce ourselves. I am Pam McCloskey, also known as Coach Pamski. And I am a speaker, a best selling author, and a coach. And I empower women who are coming from chaos and stress. And I guide them to set healthy boundaries and to manage emotional well being. And my passion comes from my own journey of stress, suicidal ideation, and a life altering house fire. I am the creator of Pamski's Place, a virtual life learning center that's all about harnessing inner resilience and transforming stress into a source of strength by promoting the 6 pillars of self care with Christian values so that women can calm the chaos and thrive while alive. Debbie, why don't you tell us who you are?
Well, hello everyone. My name is Debbie Dowling Waba, and I am the founder of Anxiously Overcoming, where I help women to cope, manage, and redirect their anxiety. I have a bachelor's in psychology, but my whole platform is around the fact of I want to be that person that helps somebody else because I've had anxiety the majority of my adult life. So I just want to be that person. And I also want to spread the word of, mental health and emotional wellness because, if we have to have that and we have to have more conversations around it, open, safe, and just make people realize that it is not a taboo topic to talk about. So that's me.
Ah, yes, yes. All right. So, with our topic today, one of my first questions for you is what kind of stress do you feel when you know you have to set goals? What is it? Where does your mind go and what goes on inside of you? Because being aware of that is very important. When you're aware of what's going on inside of you, you can do something about it. It's when you're in that place of denial or maybe just not aware at all is when the problem starts to happen because you can't do something about something if you don't know what's going on. So as we're talking here, we're going to first talk about what exactly is the stress? Like what are we stressing over? And part of it is just the thought of what we might have to do, but part of it is also the pressure that comes with actually setting these goals. And what if we fail? What if we don't really achieve them? I mean, a lot of times that is what stops people is that their thought is, what if I set this goal and then I don't really achieve it? Then I'm going to look, how are people going to see me? I'm going to look like a failure. And not only that you look like a failure, you begin to feel like a failure. And so some people won't set goals at all because they don't want to face that failure. What do you think, Debbie?
I definitely think that when you're setting your goals, that a fear does play a big factor into it because sometimes we have goals that are just so big and we can't see how we're going to get there. So we have to keep that in mind and just realize that reaching your goal is a process and you're going to have to trust the process. And even if it's step by step, just do it step by step because every step is a step closer to your goal. So I do agree that fear is a very big part of it and the whole part of, failing. And I used to be afraid of failing. And now I just look at failing as a way to say, what lesson did I learn?
Mm.
What worked? What didn't work? What am I not going to repeat? So that is my thing. And I just want to say hi to Tracy, who's saying hi to us in the chat. So we love
Yes,
to interact with our
yes.
viewers.
Yeah, if you got a question or a comment, please put it in there and we will try to answer it for you. If we don't get to it right now, we'll go back and we'll watch the comments and the questions and we will make sure we get back to you. Yes. There's a lot of overwhelming anxiety that happens when setting your goals. And sometimes it's It can lead to sleepless nights. It can lead to burnout. It can lead to constant nervousness. And, this is some of the things that we like to eliminate. If we can eliminate the stress or at least minimize it, because here's the deal. I think anytime that we're doing something outside of our comfort zone, we're going to feel stress. We're going to feel
Mhm.
some anxiousness because we're doing things we're not used to doing. But if we can eliminate some of it or at least reduce it, I'm all for that because boy, if we can talk about, we're not going to in this session so much, but we can talk about what all stress does to the body. And I don't even think we need to say much about that because I think most people recognize that stress is causing havoc in their life and in their health. So there's the overwhelming anxiety. There's also the chronic burnout where you're doing, and you're doing so much. You're trying to reach that goal. You're doing everything you possibly can to reach that goal. And then you get burned out. And I'm just going to say here if you can delegate, delegate. Give Yes, the goal might be yours, but there might be other people that can help you reach that goal. And being able to reach out to them and say, "Hey, I've got this goal. Would you mind helping me in it?" Whether it's they're helping you be accountable, or they're helping you maybe get the word out, or maybe they are giving you some suggestions of how you might be able to do it differently. Whatever it is, it's really important to have people that can help you. And for you, here's the thing, in order to be able to delegate, it means you're going to have to give up some control. And that might cause you some stress. But it's important. It's important to not do everything yourself so that you don't burn out. Debbie.
Absolutely, and, for me, it is about when asking for help is more about me, like, just not wanting to ask people because that's just who I've been, and I can do everything myself, and I realized I can't. I cannot do everything by myself. So the one thing that I try to do is figure out what areas that I feel I can let go of and um, that aren't really going to cause me that much stress. Like, for example, my kids in making their beds. Now I know that I'm going to make their beds way better than they can because I have a certain way of making a bed. But now I'm just like, you know what? Made is better than unmade, and it's their bed, and I don't really care how it looks. I'm not making their beds. So that's just a simple example. But when you can delegate to other people the tasks that maybe you can't, not that you can't do it, but that your time would be spent somewhere else better, then try to delegate what you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The other one is another reason why we stress when we're setting goals is because of low self-worth or low self-esteem. Not
Mhm.
not really seeing yourself for who you truly are or not believing that you have the ability to do or reach the goal that you have. And there's a lot of things that play into this, but one of the things is that when you have that view, if you're already talking to yourself in a negative way and you're telling yourself that you can't reach this goal, guess what? You're probably not going to reach the goal because you've already set yourself up for failure. But when you go into a goal and you tell yourself, I may not know how to do everything here to reach this goal, but I know that I can find the resources. I know I have what it takes, or I know the one who gives me strength to be able to do it. And so for us to be able to zone in, and I think, and this is like I feel really strong about this, is that you really need to see yourself for who you really are and not through the eyes of the world. Now, for me as a Christian, I will say you need to see yourself the way God sees you. but you need to see the value in you. You need to be able to see who you are, because once you do and you have that confidence, it drives you. It pulls you up on the days that you feel like you can't do something. And again, this is another reason why you need to have people in your corner so that they can help you see you for who you really are, because you live with yourself every day. And when you live with yourself every day, you don't always see the good. You see, what do? We focus on the negative. So if you can have those words of affirmation, those statements, those things that you can look at that tells you, I can do it. I am powerful. I am good at what I do. I can find the resources. I am. And allow that to help you. And it is something that, we talk about doing your gratitudes in the morning. I think it's just as important to have your I am statements right after the
Yeah.
gratitude. Like, gratitude is top number 1, but I think having those I am statements are very important. It's one of the reasons when some sports, before they go out for a game, they're back in their locker room and they're doing their I am statements and getting themselves rallied up. Why? So they can achieve, so they can be successful. And remember, they're not lies. It
No.
is really true that you are powerful and that you're beautiful and that you're amazing. And the more you tell yourself these things, the more you'll begin to believe them. But you are the one that has to do it. None of us can do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. Debbie.
Yes, and definitely the I am statements are huge, and write them out on like sticky notes and stick them everywhere just so that you're constantly reminded of I am, like I am unstoppable. And I live by that. I am unstoppable because I'm in a mindset of there's nothing that's going to stop me. Maybe it'll hold me back a little bit, but I'm not going to be stopped, because we do come into those things that come into play, and they hold us back a little bit. But just being unstoppable and really just focusing in on your I am statements, and just the gratitude is huge, but also writing them down, because you could say I am, I am, I am, or I am thankful for this. You can have them all in your head, and most of us do. But there's so much power in taking that pen and writing it out. Just brings so much power for me. I noticed that writing it down, it just has that power that doesn't exist by me just saying it. Putting it onto pen to paper has been my biggest change, as far as really seeing the different things that happen and the different things that come in, and really just affirming those I am statements and believing them, because I'm writing them down and they're constantly be put in my brain between me saying them and writing them. It's like a double whammy to the brain of believing in them.
It does. It absolutely does. So our next thing is that often when we're reaching goals or trying to reach goals, we can become isolated.
Mhm.
We can be so busy trying to reach these goals that we're not spending time with friends and family. We're not taking time out for ourselves, for self-care. And then what happens is we become lonely, and then that leads into depression. So it's something that we need to be careful of whenever we are trying to reach these goals, that we have that balance of spending time with family, not doing so much. Your goals are important. And yes, you need to be able to spend time on them, but there is a healthy balance of you spending time with family, taking care of yourself, making sure you're not isolating yourself. Make sure you get to go out with a friend. And what I think is extremely important, and that's why a planner is so important, is that you can write in your planner, this is how much time I'm going to spend on my goal this week. This is how much time I'm going to spend with other people. We were created for relationships. And if we spend all of our time reaching our goals and we're not spending time nurturing and growing relationships, we are going to feel very isolated, very lonely. And if you're feeling depression, that might be one of the questions you need to ask yourself is how much time have I spent with people? Even people who are not people need people, okay? Because you were created for relationship. Maybe you don't need to be with people as much as some others do, but you do, and maybe it just means a phone call. Maybe it's not going out and actually spending time out. Maybe it is just spending time with someone on the phone or on a Zoom, or even sometimes a text or an email can help. But making sure that you don't isolate yourself, because that causes stress. When we're talking about how do you reach these goals and what kind of stress do you experience, that's a big one. And a lot of it is driven by which we're going to get into this one, driven by perfectionism, trying to be perfect. So, in that perfectionism, you're doing all you can to reach the goal because that's your focus, but then you're forgetting the other parts that balance you out. Debbie.
Yes, and you said that there, you're focused and you're isolating yourself. Um, something, you schedule all your time out as far as, what you need to accomplish for the day, what you need to accomplish for the week, maybe the month, the year. But we need to actually, if we get to a point where we're stuck and we can't figure out, okay, well, I do need to spend time with people. You know what? It's okay to schedule that into your calendar and say, on Thursdays at 6 to 7 p.m., I'm going to spend time with my friends, one or, just call them up, or maybe organize a Zoom, or maybe go out to eat, or maybe just, go out and have well, I wouldn't drink coffee this late, but maybe a tea or something. But just schedule that time, because it is so important that we have that human contact. And for me, I'm an introverted extrovert. So I love to be around people, but I also need my alone time to recharge. And knowing yourself and knowing what it is that you need in those relationships, because we do need people. We do need that time, and we do need to take care of ourselves and self-care. And self-care does not mean going to a spa. It means just taking that time for yourself. You could just say, I'm going to sit in my chair for 15 minutes and do absolutely nothing, and just sit there. But that's self-care. Making yourself a cup of tea. Just, there's so many ways to work self-care into your day. And like I said, it doesn't have to be going to a spa, going to get your nails done or anything like that. Although they're great, that doesn't mean necessarily self-care. It could be just reading a book, sitting in a chair. Maybe you have a TV show you like, watch that. But, just make sure that you're scheduling time for yourself. And if you have to put it in your schedule, put it in your schedule and make it happen, just like you make everything else happen when it comes to your goals.
Yes, yes. So let's jump right into perfectionism, because this is
Mhm.
something that causes a lot of stress. And I have to say, I used to be a professional perfectionist.
Imagine
Things
that.
had to be, I know, right? Things had to be a certain way for me. I had to have, and not in all areas of my life, but in certain areas. And there are still certain areas where I'm working on it. I'm working on it a little more and a little more, and tell myself, look, Pam, you don't need to have this perfect. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're trying to be perfect in setting your goals and reaching your goals, you're probably not going to reach them, because you're so focused on every little detail being perfect that it's going to stump you from being able to have that momentum of really getting moving and actually reaching that goal. And here's the thing, in every big goal, there's a lot of little goals.
Yes.
And in every little goal, you still have to go through the same processes that you do for that big goal. And if every little goal you're trying to be perfect in, it's it's going to be hard to ever get to that big goal.
Yeah.
So in perfectionism, basically, and this is going to be a hard thing to swallow, but perfectionism is wrapped up in low self-worth. If you have low self-worth. A lot of times it will come out in perfectionism. Why? Because you don't wanna make a mistake,
Mhm.
because you're afraid to make a mistake. A mistake means, "Uh-oh, I'm bad. I didn't do it right. I'm not enough," and that's not what a mistake means at all. And so in that perfectionism, make sure that you're giving yourself some room to say, "You know what? I may not do this all right, but it's okay. It's okay." And the cool thing about that is as you are learning along the way and you're realizing, "I don't have to be perfect," you become more human. And when you become more human, more people can relate to you. I think more people like me as imperfect than when I was trying to be perfect. And some of that was I wanted people to like me. So I thought if I came off perfect, then they would like me more, when actually it's the opposite. The more that you allow people to see your flaws and the more that you allow yourself to fail, you learn more from it and people connect with you more. And a mistake just means to turn around. And so it's something that's super, super important in this when we're talking about the stress and in goal setting. And the other thing about this is think about the external pressure that you feel, but also the internal pressure. Talk about stress. We expect way more from ourselves than a lot of people do. And that is something I'm still working on. I expect a lot from myself. That can be a good thing, but then you can take it too far. And when you expect a lot from yourself, you will spend hours, hours upon hours trying to succeed. And then you do feel burned out and you do feel alone and you do feel like, whoa, you know, I don't have any joy in my life because I'm not spending time on what I need to. And part of the reason is because all of this external pressure of what you think everybody else expects from you, and then all the internal pressure of what you expect from yourself. It is okay to have expectations, but look at what unrealistic expectations do you have and assess those. If you have unrealistic expectations, you may need to ask yourself, where does it come from? And how do I dig in there and change some of the internal verbiage and the beliefs that I have so that we don't have those unrealistic expectations because they will beat you up. Debbie.
Yes. So, perfectionism, and I think that that held me back a lot too, because I was always of the, if I can't do it perfect, I'm not doing it. And I would shut down. And then I realized that, something done is better than perfect. And each time you do something, it'll improve more and more and more. As long as you have like a baseline of expectations of what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to do, it just can elevate the whole thing, the whole experience, and relieve the stress because you're not thinking about, "Well, is this perfect?" or what, and it goes back to delegation. When you
Mhm. Yeah.
when you if you're okay, and you should be okay with delegating things, and it might not be perfect, but you're taking something off your plate, relieving some of that stress, and giving it to somebody else that can handle it better or do it better, and all in all, it's a win-win for everyone. So I just feel like you have to let go of that imperfection and just get it done. And guess what? You'll fail.
Yeah.
You're
Yep.
gonna fail,
You're
but
gonna fail.
it's the lessons that you learn, and then don't repeat them.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
failure is part of the
But let
key.
me say something in that, even if you do repeat it, don't tell yourself you're a failure, because
Right.
here's the truth about that. Sometimes you're going to repeat a mistake, and it's not that you didn't learn from the last one that you did, like you did it again. "Oh man, I did it again." Well, maybe there's another aspect of it that you need to learn.
Yeah.
Maybe there's parts of it that is a different level. I always say there's different levels to things that we're learning, and maybe there's a new level to it, and you just need to learn that new level. So be very careful that you don't allow mistakes that you repeat tell you, I can't do this. See, I really am a failure. Fight that because it's not true. There just may be other parts of it that you need to learn. So
Right.
incredibly important.
Yeah, and I wanna add to that because, sometimes okay, you can sit and hear the same speech
Yeah.
over and over again, and no matter what, each time you're gonna hear a different part
Mhm.
because your mind is in a different space. So when you make mistakes, it goes to that whole other level of, something, well, I learned this, but I missed this. Or, okay, well, I did this, this, and this, but I missed this. So every time we're listening to something, we can repeat, like I said, verbatim, but at the same time, we're in a different headspace and we're hearing something that we did not hear the last time, as if we heard it for the first time. Even though we heard it before, our head wasn't focusing on that. So it
Oh,
goes
I have
both ways.
yes. So I have a story, a real quick one. I have a friend, he was one of my mentors, and he used to tell me all the time, "This is a time of preparation." Like, I'd be going through something, and he would say, "You're in a time of preparation." And he said it so many times that I felt like I was just gonna smack him because it's like, I don't wanna hear it one more time.
Yeah.
But actually what it was doing was every time he told me it, there was a new aspect to it. And I needed to hear it because I heard him, but I didn't understand him. And the next time it happened and he said it, it got to a point where I would start saying it for him and he would smile because he knew what was going on. It finally was sinking in, and I was really grasping it at a deeper level. And it was like, "Okay, I get it. I'm in a time of preparation." Well, I began to realize we're always in a time of preparation. We're always being prepared for that next thing. But
Yes.
for us to be able to grasp that or whatever it is that, I'm with Debbie. You definitely can read things and things can be said to you, and it
Yeah.
totally can be different each time. So this leads into I don't know if you've ever heard of cognitive dissonance, but cognitive dissonance is when you have two opposing thoughts going on or two opposing feelings going on inside of
Mhm.
you. So an example of that might be you might be a fitness person. You may be someone who really cares about health, cares about how you eat, and so you've got that belief in you, you've got that desire in you, but at the same time, you're not exercising. Maybe you go a day or 2 without exercising, and you have that thought of, I love I love how being healthy, but I'm not gonna exercise today.
Mhm.
It's a fight within you, and this happens in pretty much everything we do. If you look for it, you will see it. It's the opposing thoughts inside of you, and you really need to recognize them because when you begin to realize that this is happening, you can quickly switch it around. You can quickly tell yourself, "Okay, wait a minute here. This isn't this isn't a bad thing when it happens." I think we need to be really careful how we label things, and we can say that things are bad when they're not. We're human. It's a part of the process of the brain sometimes when this happens. And if it's the same with emotions. If we tell ourselves that we're bad for having certain emotions, well then we're gonna defeat ourselves. It's gonna pull us down, it's gonna hold us prisoner, when in fact you're human. There are certain, thoughts that you're going to have, and so when this cognitive dissonance happens, be careful of what you say to yourself. It's not bad. You're going to have opposing thoughts at times. and being able to recognize them and say, okay, and this is where goals do come in is that, yes, you might be a fitness person and you fully believe in being healthy, but if you take a day or two off, does that make you a bad person? And are you able to say, okay, you know what? But I'm going to set the goal then that I'm going to exercise the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, and making sure that you do. So just be careful about where your mind goes and not beating yourself up because you're having opposing thoughts. Very important to, recognize and be able to look at. So let's get into what are strategies because, okay, great. We talked about the stresses and where they come from and all of that. But what do you do? How do you overcome the stress that comes in goal setting? Well, the first one is, first of all, set realistic goals. And
Yes.
if you don't know what a realistic goal is, you need a coach. You need someone to help you because sometimes we are so close to things we can't see it. And in that, that means setting goals that are realistic. And you ask yourself, okay, what's the difference between a realistic goal and a high achieving goal? Because, we're often told, oh, make sure your goal is so big that it gets you out of your comfort zone, that it gets you stretching, and which there is truth to that. But what I'm going to say is, okay, you can have that really high achieving goal, the one that you feel like, oh man, it's really going to stretch me to reach it. But do you have realistic, smaller goals to reach that really high achieving goal? You understand what I'm saying? Because we talked about this, if you have unrealistic goals, are you going to reach the goal? Probably not. So, what kind of realistic goals? This is what you should be asking yourself. What realistic goals do I need to make for me to achieve that bigger goal? And have someone help you. Be able to talk to someone and tell them, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm thinking about. And they can actually take that and say, well, have you thought about doing this? Or, wow, that is great. Do you want me to hold you accountable? So important. Debbie.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So when you have to set realistic goals, you have to keep them real. Let's face it. You can't say, I'm going to be an Olympic skater when you don't even own a pair of skates. So you have to set realistic goals. And you know something? It's not that far-fetched that maybe you could be an Olympic skater, but first you have to get those skates. Then you
Mhm.
have to go to the ice rink. Then you have to learn how to balance on those skates and then continue to evolve from there. So if you're setting your goal to be an Olympic skater by the end of this year, it's not going to happen and that's not realistic. But you could say in 2 years, I could be in 3 years. And then when you put the work in and step by step, you get there. So it is important that we set those realistic goals for ourselves and know that, yes, okay, I can achieve this, but it's going to take a little bit of work.
Mm.
And these are the steps that I need to do in order to get to that big goal. Because it's great to have those big goals, but when you don't have a plan in place to take those little baby steps, you are going to set yourself up for failure and you're going to go into that self-talk of I can't do this, I'm not good enough, and that's not true. You just tried to
Yes.
win the game before you even started.
Right, right. And I've been doing a lot of reflecting. I've been doing a lot of reflecting on my business the last several years, where I am today compared to where I wanted to be. And I actually found a piece of paper that had my goals on it for 2023. And when I looked at what my goals were, and now that we're into 2024, I was shocked. I reached most of those goals. There was probably only 2 that I didn't quite reach, but I'm almost there. And that felt really good. So being able to
Mhm.
look back and assess what happened in this year? What goals did you have? And how close are you to reaching them? Or did you achieve them? Because sometimes we achieve the smaller goals and we don't even celebrate them. Like we don't even acknowledge the fact that we've reached them. And where I am today in my business is exactly where I wanted to be when I first started my business. Like I had certain goals of where I wanted to be. And it feels really good to look at all that I had to do. And was
Mhm,
it work? Absolutely. It was work. Was there hardship? Yes, there was hardship. Was
mhm,
there failure? Yes, there was failure. But I learned so much through all that, that today, now I have goals of what my business is gonna look like in the next 3 years. And what am I going to do? What are some things that need to happen
mhm,
for my business to be where I want it to be in the next 3 years? Which leads into being flexible. Here's the thing, you have to be flexible. You can have your things that you will negotiate on and other things that are non-negotiable.
yeah,
There are places where you're going to be flexible, and then there's places where no way, you are not going to budge because you know that it needs to be in place. So let's talk about the things that need to be flexible. What does that look like for you? Look at your life and ask yourself, are you so hard stoned on things that you're not leaving room for growth, for change, for new things to come in? Because if you are so stone cold that you are not gonna budge, you're not leaving room
yeah,
for those things to happen. I used to be so hard about my time. Like my time was so rigid and set in place that I wasn't leaving room for God to work in my life. And finally, I got to a point where I realized I needed to be flexible. And I told myself, Pam, this is not your time. This is God's time. And so I handed my time over. Now, did that mean that I just left everything happen the way? No, it meant I looked at what things I could be flexible on and what things in my time was non negotiable. They had to happen. And it was really interesting as the weeks went on, where I got to see where things came in and interrupted my time, but because I became flexible, I didn't stress out over it. I didn't get angry. I didn't get frustrated. I didn't say, "Oh, why won't people just leave me alone?" I said, "Okay, well, this is something that must be important. And here's the time of day that I can let that happen." And wow, talk about taking the stress off your shoulders.
mhm.
So good. So, so good.
Yeah, and I wanna go back to, something 'cause I you touched on it, but you really didn't, expand on it, and I wanna say the celebrating, celebrating. Celebrate those little wins, celebrate those little steps, because every step you take is another step closer. So why aren't you celebrating them? Just don't pass them by, celebrate them. And then, you're talking about, what was the last thing we were talking about?
Flexibility.
Flexibility. Oh my goodness. Flexibility and be able to pivot. Pivot,
Mhm.
pivot, pivot, like they said in Friends with the Couch. Pivot, pivot, pivot. You have to be able to be flexible and pivot, because you know something, life be lifing, and there's things that are going to come at you that you don't expect or that you did not anticipate. And you have to be able to be in that moment, think quick, make the pivot, be flexible, understand that not everybody's going to be where you are, and maybe you're working with somebody and they're not as flexible as you, or maybe you're not the one that's flexible, but you understand, okay, so they might take a little bit longer to do this. So I have to be a little bit flexible because I know they do a great job, but I have to be flexible and allow them their time and understand and meet them where they are. That doesn't mean you let them completely slack, but at the same time, we can't always expect everybody to be as eager as we are. So we have to
Mhm.
accept them from where they are, and we have to allow them to do their thing and just be flexible with that. So,
Absolutely, yes. Which leads us into a few other things that we need to do, and one of them is mindfulness. Being
mhm,
very mindful, present, being able to be in the moment is extremely important. If you want a stressful life, don't be present. Let me say that again. If you want a stressful life, don't be present. Don't be in the moment, because the more that you are present, the more you're able to eliminate or at least reduce stress. A lot of times, think about this. Think about a day where you're having conversations with people and you're not really listening. You're not really present. You're not hearing what they're saying to you. And later on in the day, they said, "Did you do this thing that we talked about earlier?" And you're looking at them with like deer eyes in a headlight, because you're like, "Well, I don't know. I don't remember that conversation. I remember you saying that." And they're going to say, "Well, earlier we talked about this. What was the problem?" The problem was it was like Charlie Brown's teacher
wah,
talking,
wah,
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 wah, wah,
wah.
wah, wah. You did not hear what they were saying because you were not present. Or think about when you're spending your time, your day, and you're not reflecting, you're not present on how you feel about things. Stress happens because other things are going
Mhm,
on. If you're present, you're able to see these other things beginning to happen and you can do something about it. But if you're not present, you don't see it, you don't acknowledge it, you don't know it's there, and then it piles up. And then you begin to wonder, well, why is my life like this? Well, let me ask you, how present have you been lately? How much are you aware of what's going on around you, what other people are saying, what other people are doing, what you're doing? Because sometimes we're not even present with our own
mhm,
selves. So, to reduce the stress in goal setting, make sure that you are present. Make sure that you are spending more time. And I know sometimes it's hard. We live 95% of the time in the subconscious mind. But that doesn't mean we have to stay there. It doesn't mean that we can't get better. And there's lots of things that you can do to stay present. Have the rubber band on your wrist and ping it. Have something that grounds you and brings you back into thoughtful presence, um, using the ice. Whatever works for you, make sure you're doing it. Maybe a ding on your phone. And every time the phone dings, you ask yourself, wait, am I present right now? Have I been present in the last? Because you know the way it goes. You can be driving down the road and gone 10 minutes. You get to your house and you think, oh my goodness, I don't even remember driving. Well, because you're in your subconscious
yes,
mind. You don't need to be there because you've done it 1,000 times before. Is that healthy? No,
mm-mm,
no. So do things that helps you be in the present and realize how important it really is to be in the present. You'll appreciate it and other people will appreciate it. You'll respect yourself and other people will respect you too.
yes, so yeah,
Debbie.
and it was 2019, I believe, where I decided that my word for the year was gonna be present, and let me tell you what a year that was. Now, I know we had the other stuff going on, which I will not mention, but anyway, it when you're present in the moment, like, I realized, okay, I'm in the room, but I'm not paying attention to anything on going on in the room. I'm in my head,
Mhm.
I'm on my phone, I'm not in that moment. So, my whole thing was that year, I was gonna focus on being present and in the moment and enjoying everything, playing that game with my kids and not having my brain in 50 other places, just focusing in on that, and let me tell you something, it's not the easiest thing to do. It's really not. But by the end of that year, when I realized what being present and being in the moment was, and just looking back at all the things that I was missing because I wasn't present, I was like, "Oh my
Mhm.
goodness." So my next
Yeah.
year became to focus, and I'll tell you that just each year I've had a different word. It went from focus to intention, and this year my word is fearless, and I feel like if I didn't start with that one word of being present, the other words would not have fallen into place because I can't be focused and intentional if I wasn't present to begin with. So it's just been
Exactly.
a journey,
Yes.
and this year's fearless because I'm just gonna take what my focus and everything, and avoid that procrastination and that self-talk and that those fears and that lack of self-confidence, and I'm just gonna be fearless and do it scared anyway.
Yes, yes, my it's interesting because my word this year is bold.
Okay.
My word this year is bold, and we're only what, 14 days into
Mhm.
15 days into January, and I can already see how much this word is playing out, and I'm thinking, "Ooh, what is this year gonna be like?" So I'm excited about that. Yes, and talking about procrastination, I'm just gonna put this in right now. I am having a 30-day beat procrastination challenge, and it's life transforming. If you struggle putting things off, if you get frustrated with yourself because there's things that you want to do, goals you want to reach, and you have a hard time doing that, sign up for the 30-day beat procrastination challenge because I pack this thing full of education, motivation, and support. So make sure you sign up for that. I'll make sure the link is somewhere where you're able to click on it and sign up for it. Debbie was a part of
Yes.
it. I have several people that have just loved being in it, and so I'm excited about looking at what people are going to achieve in this procrastination challenge because it's always really good, and there's prizes to be won. So there's
And
that bonus.
Pam, I am putting together a challenge for the beginning of February, and it's gonna be 14 days of self-love because the month of
Oh, yay!
l it's the month of love that and it's gonna start February
Yes.
1st, and it'll end on Valentine's Day, which is my baby's birthday. One of my babies were born on Valentine's Day. But yes, I wanna have, I wanna have a challenge because I think that in these days and times and everything that's going on in the real world, I don't watch the news, so I'm not that up on the real world stuff, but we're still not taking the time for ourselves. So I'm gonna have this 14-day
Yes.
challenge of self-love and self-care and just, loving yourself.
That's fun. That is so fun. Well, hey, let's get this
Yes.
wrapped up. So, to finish this off, one of the things I think we need to understand is our limits.
Mhm.
When we talk about expectations on ourselves, what we're really talking about is accepting the fact that we do have limits. When we talk about not wanting to make mistakes, what's the problem? We need to understand and accept the fact that we do have limits, and those limits are okay. Having those limits just means that you might leave room for somebody else to help. Or, here's my big one, you might leave room for God to do what He needs to do. We don't have to understand it all. We don't have to do it all. We don't have to be about being all. And so understanding our limits just means that we might need to adjust our goals. Understanding our limits. Now, you might have limits today that you didn't have before. Maybe you're getting older and your body doesn't work like it used to. Or maybe you have an illness and it keeps you from being able to do certain things. Or maybe you have children and your time is wrapped up in helping your children that you don't have as much time as you used to. That's a limit. Like there's different things that causes the limits, so accept them and pivot. Do that adjustment that you might need to take in order to reach those goals. But remember, tell yourself it's okay. There's a season for everything. Let me say that again. There is a season for everything. What you might not be able to do today because you're limited, later in life you might be able to do. So just remember that work with the limitations you have. Tell yourself it's okay. Pivot, adjust, and keep going. Don't let these limitations stop you. Keep going. I cannot tell you how many people I have met who have had disabilities, who have had some kind of limitation. Did it stop them? No. Matter of fact, it drove them. It drove them to overcome. It drove them to do things maybe a little bit different than someone else would do it to be able to achieve that goal. Were there people watching them? Yes. And what did they learn? They learned if you keep going, if you keep adjusting, if you keep allowing yourself to move forward, you reach the goal. And imagine, I want you just to close your eyes right now, and I want you to picture that goal that you have. I want you to picture yourself achieving it. What do you feel like? What is going on inside of you? How much excitement do you have? How proud are you of yourself? How much? How good it feels? And how much respect do you have for yourself? That's what you have to picture so that those limitations don't stop you and you just keep going and you keep going. You know your why and you keep reminding yourself of your why and you keep going because that feeling you deserve to have, that goal that you're wanting to reach, you deserve to reach and allow yourself to keep going no matter what the limitations are. Debbie,
And
what
you
do
know,
you have to say about
sometimes I
this?
think, with limitations, we might not necessarily really have those limitations, but what are we telling ourselves? "Oh, no, I can't do that." Well, you know what?
Mhm.
You probably
Yes.
can. You just don't have that confidence or that, oomph to go try and do it yourself. Now, that being said, there may be some things that you can't do. Like, I could tell you right now, if you ask me to climb up a tree, that's not happening because I'm afraid of heights.
Come on, Debbie, climb the tree,
No,
climb
because
the
I'm
tree.
afraid of heights, so my limitation is I'm not getting on I won't get on ladders even, so I have to ask my tall sons to use the
Mhm.
ladders to get things that I can't get because I just have a fear. I know this is gonna be my year of fearless, but I have my
Ooh,
limitations.
hooray. That's so good. All right, to wrap this up, remember, it is not exactly the reaching the goal that's important. Sometimes it's the path that you
Yes,
take to reach that
absolutely.
goal. The things that you learn along the way, the people you get to meet, the things that you bring in that are rich to you. There's just so much that you will gain along the path of reaching your goal. So remember, it's not always just reaching the goal. It's the path along the way. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Get celebrate, feel good about what you're learning as you get there. And sometimes those are the things that you're going to teach other people. Those are the things that you're going to share with other people. The frustrations, the limitations that you feel along the way, the mindset, all of those things are things that you're going to be able to share with others and others need that. So make sure that you look at the path and not just the goal. Alrighty, so I am so glad that you were here with us. Like I said, if you have any questions or any comments, leave them and we will get back to you. And thank you so much for being here. It's time to thrive while alive. Bye
Bye.
bye.